The fifth ending. There we go. We got sound. The head sound and the head sound. Fifth ending. We are falling asleep. And we are actually going to look at the light this time. Who's gonna be in? Oh, Sarge. So, which means this is gonna be an interesting one if we have to look at the light. I paid her no mind and looked again at the window. There was a light. It was faint, vague, like a shrouded star. No, this was no light. It was visible in the darkness, but that was more of a side effect. Whoa! It was crying out to me, though, through the shadows of the night, crying out to be seen, to be noticed. There, draped in a set of ancient robes, floated the figure of a young girl. You've come, at long last. It was a tremulous voice, filled with sorrow. I'm still not sure if I really heard it, or if it was somehow echoing in my mind. But one thing was certain, it wasn't a dream, nor was it an illusion. There was no doubt about what I heard next. It was Kid and Miguel making apprehensive noises as they appeared at my side. The heck was that? It took a few minutes, but Kid soon just about regained her composure. The mythology, necromancy, with enough experience in these practices, eventually one can see the dead. And while it's not exactly something to be proud of, having taken on some very odd jobs indeed, we've witnessed things that no ordinary person would ever see, more than a few that no one should ever see, courtesy of Miguel's dark art. Even so, for a moment, the three of us were stunned. If I had to say why, perhaps it was because the seemingly bottomless sorrow of the girl's sigh, the sense of torment, even struck a chord with all of us. Nothing will come of lingering here. Something told me that Miguel was right. We should leave. It wasn't until later that I realized the ashen tone Kid's face had taken on wasn't just because of the moonlight. Alright. Go to the ballroom, which is the. Yeah. On the stairs. We continued onward. There's some ornate double doors. We went inside. Was the noise I was expected the noise to make. Instead, they simply swung open silently, as if completely weightless. We found ourselves in a huge chamber, 2 stories high. It was like a cathedral, right down to the enormous pipework against built on the back wall. Flickering light of countless candles seemingly engaged in a losing battle with the shadows their own flames created gave the room an almost half there. Looks like a church of some kind, but there's something strange about it. It's the shape. Most churches are cross shaped. Was I like Miguel to make a comment like that? I'm pumped. Something about the place was bothering him, and not in the same way that it was bothering Kid and me. The layout of this chamber is unusual indeed, and deliberately so, as if whoever built it intended to avoid any suggestion that they might be honoring the gods, or perhaps they were honoring other gods. Pondered away to himself, he began to examine the room around him. I can't see anything here that we need to be concerned ourselves with. Let's be honest. I walk over to the pipe organ and that caught my attention. How odd. There was an extra key on the keyboard. I did a double take, unsure that my eyes were deceiving me, but sure enough, there was one black key too many. Taking the time to note this little detail, but my trained eye picked it out right away. Wait. Let's both. The two white keys. The moment I pressed the keys, a section of the floor next to the open sank into the ground. A set of stairs led down the darkness. Yeah, we noticed. We're already standing right beside me. It's fast as well. It wasn't quite bright enough for us to see all the way to the edges, but it was enough to show that the room beneath was about the same size as the chamber above, in line with the same columns. In fact, it seemed a lot like this might have been the floor level of an even more vast original chamber. The ceiling, that is to say, the floor of the hall above, appears to have been built much more recently than the rest of the room. If it was as if someone had rushed to put a lid on something that had happened here, something they didn't want others to find. Okay. It was some kind of hazy cloud. No, that wasn't quite it. Is that one of the magic circle thingamajigs? Doesn't look like it's been used for young. What do you reckon, Mag? It's difficult to know for certain. It would seem so, but it would take some time to investigate enough to know for sure. It certainly seems to be ancient. Well, it ain't going nowhere. I guess we can come back and have a proper look later. We got the rest of the manor to explore yet. But seemed a little disappointed at having to leave his find behind. Nevertheless, he seemed as keen as the rest of us to avoid getting stuck down here for too long. Okay, we're back into court. We need to go to Linux's quarters. We are going down the stairs. And then we will go right. And we will keep going. Something stinks here. I reckon we found the beast's lair, lads. Went inside. What's up, Meg? This kid. Standing at the door, a perplexed look on her face. This is no ordinary lock, but neither is it magical. Strange indeed. Sounds like we're stuck then. Let's go. Wait, what? Turn back. Uh, okay. Hang on. Because the original guide is open. Activated frost. I'm slightly confused. Flash. That doesn't. Because I don't know how to. I don't know where to go exactly. Here we go. All right. See, normally you would be able to get into Linux's room. So I guess we're just gonna play this out. Try going in here real quick. Bed is single flower. Used to live here. Everything was buried in a thick layer of dust that blew here and there, and the breeze coming through the shattered window. The items were right there with nothing but mementos of long since departed occupants. I don't think we'll find much in here. Okay, let's go. She didn't hear me. She was too busy peering into a chest big enough for her to climb inside. A set of pale blue robes. They looked like something a nightmare. Alicia. Whispered a name I'd never heard before, and I could only repeat it in a puzzlement. It didn't seem that she even noticed that I was there until I spoke. Never mind. Let's go. Now can we go to the Linux room? Maybe try going back up to the cathedral. Hmm. Okay. So we have to go to the flame next. Yeah, go up the stairs. Left towards the Terrans. Oh no. Oh, not this again. I'm a good man, can't catch her. Oh, keep following the corridor. We continued onward. Well, we're about to keep something safe. There is some kind of trick behind a menu. Yeah. Yep. Not for long. We have an award of unlocking, but Kid beat him to the punch with a twist of her pin. It seemed almost suspiciously easy. I got the feeling Kid and Miguel thought the same thing. Reached into the room, our senses on high alert. We hoped we might find a treasure vault, a hall of miracles stacked to the ceiling with glittering gold, coins, and jewels, but the sight that greeted us was very different. Which isn't to say there wasn't a treasure or two. There were jewels and precious metals, the kinds of things nobility and the rich like, but they were arranged in a very particular pattern. It was a massive diorama, a seascape rendered in minute detail using priceless treasures. Glittering white crystals formed the crest of waves deep as valleys, which rose in great columns of anger. There was a reef made from jade, glittering, glinting with a strange, hard light atop which sat a mermaid, a pearl, with an enigmatic smile, silver hair, and scale meek. And among the waves was a hand clutching at thin air and seemingly about to be swallowed by the waters. I couldn't identify what it is made from, but it was stunningly realistic. It was an incredible work of art. This single moment of a great storm crystallized and preserved forever, but it wasn't beauty that it conveyed to me. It filled me with an inexplicable dread, and though the scene was composed of countless precious stones, one stood out starkly from the rest. It was the stone the mermaid held, a jewel shaped like a lotus flower and drenched in a blood red light. The frozen flame. We all knew it instantly. We found it. Get the ladder out, Surge. I'm gonna grab the loot. Having been lured by the siren's call, Kid could hardly contain her excitement. Something held me back. No, it felt like something was almost pushing me back. Whatever it was keeping me from sharing in Kid's sense of gleeful pride that I couldn't let my nerves get the better of me. I put my most cheerful voice up. There's no time to ignore my gut. Wait a second. Nah, you make it quick, or I can make it painful. It turned out I wasn't as ready to incur as I thought. I did my best to annoy my good senses, screaming at me as I lowered my pack to the ground. Once Kid made her mind up about something, there was no stopping her after all, even if it gets us all killed. I took the pieces of a portable ladder from among my things. They were made from the light. And the light yet sturdy, yet light and sturdy, yet palatable stalks of a plant that grows in the east, which made them perfect for bringing along on little expeditions like this. I tossed out the pieces one by one while Kid and Miguel put them together, as they'd done many times before. A few minutes later, we had a ladder long enough to cross the Sea of Jewels. Kid left the finishing touches to me as she dumped her heavy bag and weapons on the floor. He began to breathe in a strange rhythm, concentrating hard on the task at hand. There's a secret technique she learned somewhere that enables her to reduce her weight to a fraction of its normal level. What? She practically floated over to the mermaid, the latter barely even bending. But her little trick did nothing to stop the trap that was sprung the moment she stepped foot on the reef. As she reached for the throat of flame, webbed fingers lashed out, their talons digging deep into her arm. Bright red blood sprouted from the wounds. The mermaid's aquamarine's eyes remained impassive, but her scales rustled, and she began to move. There was an awful creaking sound as cogs within her pearlescent form began to grind against one another. Quicksilver coursed through the clockwork guardian's veins as she whirled into motion, prepared to deal with the intruder who had dared step foot into her domain. At the same moment, the of jewels began moving like a real sea, as if the moment, frozen in time, had suddenly thawed. Fresh crystals that formed the crests of the waves began to beat against Kid mercilessly, as if trying to throw her from the reef. Before she knew it, she'd lost her footing. As I watched her fall, I caught sight of something even stranger. It was the hand I saw earlier. But it wasn't just a hand now. The whole body had been revealed. The whole corpse, I should say. It looked like as if the last person who had set this gruesome mechanism in motion had been trapped there, frozen until such time as another unknowing victim had happened along. Kid, she was thrashing helplessly in the raging waves. Oh boy. Was she going to be the next victim of this monstrous machine? You had to do something. We couldn't leave her to die like this. And then the mermaid slipped into the waves, making straight for her. There was a flash of light from Miguel's hand, followed by a silver needle which shot through the air and struck the mindless automation right in the eye. But the mechanical monster didn't miss a beat. It was just another cog in a bigger machine, one whose sole purpose was to attack, to destroy, but a cog nonetheless. The true heart of this enormous mechanism lies all opened, as if suddenly dislocated. Rows of razor-sharp teeth glistened inside, teeth designed to tear flesh. And there was a punched it. What was it? Something had been gnawing at me this whole time. I just had to think. What was it? Of course, the corpse. It wasn't the machine's mass victim all. It was part of the machine. But since it was only part of it, it wasn't made from precious stones. That meant it was different, important. I was going purely on gut instinct, but I had nothing else to go on. Look out! Aim for the corpse! Without another word or a look in my direction, he set the shockwave spell he was about to cast on the mermaid, sailing straight at the corpse instead. Its head shattered into pieces, the blast tearing into the surrounding wave. But there was no blood. The body must have been stewing there for a long time. Didn't have to dwell on the The dramatic transformation occurred, and my mood changed to one of profound relief. It was as if everything we just seen was a bad dream. The tempestuous sea and the mermaid were still again. All was motionless and hard as stone. Her little dunking hadn't done her much good. She was recting violently enough to turn even my stomach. And then I saw it. She was clenching the frozen flame in one hand, clenching it so tightly that it would surely leave a mark. The curse solely overrides the perception of its victims. Not only does this prevent them from acting effectively, but even if they keep their wits about them, they have no way of knowing which part of the mechanism to aim for. Clever. Corpse. The only thing that had now transformed back into a mass of jewels. Looking at it made me feel sick. I've had enough of this horrible scene. Well, we got what we came for. I reckon it's time we skedaddled. Very hurry to stick around either. So we left. Well, oh wait, we're going the wrong way. Just went down to the torture chamber. Continue on. Continued on. Something was wrong. Didn't there used to be a Terrence here? The moonlight picked out with cold precision a corridor whose flagstone stretched off the endlessness. Hard for human mind. How spacious the corridor was here. No, I remember that tree. I memorized its outline to guide us on our way back through the forest. Begin to march. Straight on, we found ourselves confronted with the same tree. Like I can't really go. If this mess is anyone's fault, it's yours. I never wanted to come to this stupid manor in the first place. You made the curse imprisons its victims in an endless corridor, forcing them to wander until their sanity slips away. I see that the walls are almost practically distorted. An ordinary person could very well lose their mind here. Pushed hard on some kind of pressure point. I realized I was regaining my grip on the situation. That the lord of the manor is not keen to let us leave. Keep going. Down the stairs. Continue. It's funny. Yeah, funny, is it? Then why aren't you laughing? Here, maybe I can help. Whatever, just thought I'd liven things up a little. And like a light going out, kids. So the thing you thought was funny, it's that we aren't seeing a living soul since we've put in this place, right? Even after wandering around for hours. Right, aren't I? All struck. There's some insight saying we're now that I heard now that I heard it put into words by someone else, the whole thing seems even stranger. If you seek answers, perhaps you can ask the Lord of the Manor directly. Whispering at a dark mahogany door ahead, its grandeur was practically an announcement that beyond it lay the Lord of the Manor's chamber. Before we head in there, you ready, boys? Finally, now we can open it. This was Linux room, or at least it had been. But I'm just being confusing. It's all flooding back too fast. What I meant to say was that it was clearly Linux's room. But that Linux wasn't there anymore. Well, he was, but he was dead. He and a knight from some foreign land appeared to have killed each other at the same time. Can't believe this. We would have heard rumors if he'd end up and died, wouldn't we? I had to agree, but we heard nothing of the kind. How was that possible? Linux was so well known. Thinking everything he did got talked about eventually. If he'd been found dead, there was no way we wouldn't heard about it. How could his body have just lain here all this time without word getting out? No, wake up, Linux, you skunk. You got things to answer for. Killing all those people. Taking Felicia from me. You can't die without paying for all that. It's not bloody fair. We can't be the first people to have found him, can we? Maybe someone did, but they never made it back alive to tell the tale. I almost got the feeling she thought she was lightening the mood by saying this. She wasn't. This was serious, deadly serious. Strange. You've been eyeing Linux body with a cold, almost scientific interest. Yeah, quite the little scene we happened here. Okay? But he never saw that coming. The situation as if dispelling the miasma of fear that had descended. But as always, Miguel was less than perceptive, continued to coldly assess the situation. His corpse shows no sign of life whatsoever. No kidding. I had no idea what he was trying to tell us. When a person dies, their mind and their will, what some call their souls, leave the body. Their life essence, however, remains, slowly dissipating as the body breaks down. Well, he doesn't look too fresh to me. You sure it hasn't all leaked out already? Converse should be over coronavirus. Get out of there. It is true that not a single shred of vital essence remains, but this is not normal. Far more strangely, I cannot detect signs of any such essence ever having been present in this body. Every last vestige to have vanished. For once. For the Enix. Maybe Linux and the guy he was fighting were vampires? Really? Fully analytic knowledge of the supernatural? I wasn't too keen to find out. We've seen enough already. A ghostly girl, a mechanical mermaid, and now the lord of an abandoned manor's corpse drained of every last shred of its vital essence. I was ready to leave as Kid was. But either Miguel hadn't noticed, or he chose to put his interest in getting to the bottom of the mystery first. No, you are correct that vampirism would explain the lack of vital essence, but vampires retain their souls. And they do not lie still for want of essence. They set out to prowl the night in search of it, on an endless quest for blood. Which means instead of being... That's enough of that. So what are you saying is, this corpse has no life or soul in it, yeah? Why do we care exactly? For once, she and I were of the same mind. Something strange was going on. It wasn't just this room. The whole manor was steeped in something very wrong indeed. Despite being completely empty as far as we'd seen, a presence lurked in every corner. And it was clear, don't ask me how, that this was no ordinary haunting. Listen, we've got the frozen flame and Linux is dead. We're done here. We're leaving. You got that? Patience finally got the better of her. Very well, assuming we are permitted to leave, he said. He was staring at a large mirror embedded in the wall at the back of the room. Kid, you've come. You've finally come. It's the girl again. She wore an expression of un, un, and unutterable sadness. Something tells me that our friend here wishes us to stay. Kid, like, kid, you don't know her, do you? Alicia. It's funny because the original version, her name is Shia. There's actually an entire in the Chrono Compendium site. There's a whole section for her, like an entire page. I barely managed to stammer out the question, but it didn't matter. Chip wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked at the girl, an imploring look on her face. Flew to the mirror and began to intune the spell. What is it? What do you want from us? He asked. It hurts. It hurts so much. I need your souls. Go around the room, but it was just as quickly drowned out by an unbearable metallic screeching. That's Linex's voice. Blood red light was seeping from her clenched fist. It was as if the frozen flame was sending out tentacles in an attempt to seize her body. Did you get him, Mag? He was trying his hardest to contain the sorcery that was flying around the room. It looked like every muscle in his body was straining with the effort. No, you fool. This alone won't hold him. Take Kid and get out of here. I looked back and saw that she was collapsed on the floor, wide as a sheet. And yet her hand was still grasped tightly around the frozen flame. I threw her over my shoulder and fled into the corridor. Kid? Where am I? Where do you think we are? 2. Seems you're back to normal. 2 fingers as he spoke. And Kid had completely ignored his actual question and counted them instead. The unusual understanding they shared was beyond me. It still is. And as an aside, the actual answer to Miguel's question was the corridor on the first floor, near the terrace we can't get to. He suggested that we head back towards the magic circle we found earlier. Okay? Something I once saw long ago. There was along with something about finding a way. What if you can't find a way? Lost consciousness at all? I was relieved that she seemed to be okay, more than okay, in fact, chipper even. Then I fear we will spend the rest of our lives in this manner. Well, that sucks. Without food, the rest of our lives will only be about a week. That didn't exactly feel another topic entirely. He then launched out of nowhere into protracted pondering. The fact that the robes the ghost girl had been wearing was very distinctive. If I didn't know better, I was sworn he noticed that he brought the mood down and changed the subject to try and cheer me up. The nun robes from the Temple of the Four. Kid's mood, however, seemed to darken the moment the girl was mentioned. Yeah, isn't that where you grew up? Had told me about it a while back. A nun from the Temple of the Four are taking it in, Kid, and some other abandoned children. The woman had had a similar childhood herself. The Kid had grown very attached to her as a result. But when Kid was still quite young, the Lord of the region had summoned a nun to his manor. She returned. Afterwards, she had snuck out of the temple and tried to make her way to Lionsville to find her friend. But she was only a child and couldn't make it far. She returned home to find the temple and the village that surrounded it in ruins and everybody dead. Luckily for her, Miguel was a frequent visitor to the temple had arrived not long after. Kids surrounded by bodies that had already shriveled and dried up like mummies. There she sat, silently glaring in the direction of Linus's manor, her lips tightly sealed. And they stayed sealed. It was years before Kid spoke again, and according to Miguel, she hadn't shed a single tear yet. Here goes. Her hand was on the door, ready to push it open. I realized that we were already back at the great chamber. This time the door made the eerie noise I had first expected as it swung open, scraping on my already taut nerve. I pressed the same keys on the bar. For a moment, I thought the contraption might not work in time, but I didn't have worried. The stairs to the hall below appeared just as they led last time, but this time the place that led us looked very different. Before it had been too dark to see. This time it was bright as day. Someone's there. Welcoming committee, just what we need. The tension was visible on Kid and Miguel's face. Mine, on the other hand, probably looked outright terrified. Oh, can't keep them waiting. Spurred us back into motion. Choice but to press on. Whoa! Down there from how it had been before. The room was filled with light. The presence we felt before was alive now, and the swirling spectral energy filled the room. The outline of the magic circle on the floor pulsed with a powerful garnet red light. Welcoming our arrival with an almost palpable sense of glee. Under less harmonious circumstances, one might even have described the scene as beautiful, if one had been prepared to ignore the vast, very disturbing sight at the center of it. There, in the middle of the storm, we saw him. Oh no! Linux for the Antifa. Conscious grab. My heart. I'd never laid eyes on him before, but I knew it was him the moment I saw him. This was, without a doubt, form that hollow, desecrated corpse had taken in life. This was the man behind it all. They were finally face to face with him. Was stronger, more deliberate. She seemed almost scared before, but every trace of fear had vanished. Now it was hatred that governed her, and all other emotions. I wonder if she might even be feeling some kind of mad delight, a perverse, insane glee, finally getting her chance for revenge. For his part, decided this thing be faced with his mortal foe, assuming he shared Kid's sense of enemy. In a calm, soft voice, almost as gentle as a whisper, return the frozen flame to me. So kind, you're carrying my very soul. You think I'm just gonna hand it over because you asked? Go all the trouble of nicking it if I was gonna give it up that easily. She had taken the frozen flame from her pocket and was gripping it tightly. Blaze from between our fingers. What happened to you anyway? What the hell's going on with your manor? Or your mansion? As I am sure you've seen, my physical body perished in a scuffle with an assassin. Thankfully, by employing an ancient rite, I was able to preserve my soul in the form of a jewel. Alas, the price I paid was to take on a form incapable of traveling beyond the confines of this magic circle. My powers are lost to me. Please at least return my soul. Alas, indeed, Liney. Boy. But if you think I'm gonna take pity on you after thinking you're done, you're nuts as well as evil. You think dying once is enough for pay for your crimes? Your suffering, suffering only just begun. no one's ever. Oh, we're gonna shatter it. No, whoa! First, another voice had joined Miguel's. He cried out, "You little." And it was the girl. The same girl who had gazed at us so pleadingly from the window when we first entered the manor. Oh boy, kid. Smashing the jewel, losing yourself in a rage, it's exactly what Linux wants. If you lose yourself entirely, he will consume your soul, just as he did mine. You will become another stepping stone on his road to resurrection. I know now where I've seen it before. It's a soul hex. It consumes the souls of any of with whom it comes into contact, and uses them to break the ties that bind an imprisoned spirit, restoring it to life. Miguel, usually so comical, I couldn't quite keep the horror out of his voice. Consuming souls. Suddenly, all came together in my mind. The fact that the manor was deserted, that once we grabbed the frozen flame, we'd been able to leave, that the ghosts we could encounter had fled in fear of being consumed by it, and that it had been so easy to acquire the jewel in the first place. It could only mean the entire manor was a trap. Oh, well, okay, skip that. Just as I was coming to my realization, a voice spoke the name, a name I'd heard before. I came for you. I finally made it. It was Kid. I never heard Kid speak so plaintively before. She sounded almost like a child calling out to her mother. And then I remembered who Felicia was. She was the nun who had looked after Kid, the only person she ever been close to. Sister Felicia. Oh, Quid. Sweet little, how are you grow? Come on. Of course. I'm grateful you came for me, Kid, but I cannot come home. You must flee this place while I can still contain him. You always were a willful one. But I cannot leave. I must atone for my father's sins. Father? He knew that they were coming for him, that his life was in danger, and so he made certain preparations. He conjured up the hex you see before you, a curse that consumes the souls of others in order that a departed soul can be returned to life. But in order to create it, he needed the soul of a blood relative, his daughter. Forgive me, I cannot tell you. I could not tell you. I could not tell anyone. This monster was my father. He was born out of wedlock to a woman with no standing, but he was my father nonetheless. The moment the assassin slew him, his curse consumed mine. His soul consumed mine in order to trigger the creation of the frozen flame. It's said about consuming the souls of everyone in the manor, but even this harvest of souls would not suffice to bring him back. Soon he had consumed all those in his domain, and yet still he hungered. Still, this was not enough to bring about his resurrection, so he decided to use the jewel that contained his soul as a lure to bring unsuspected thieves to the manor. I must atone for my part in these terrible crimes. You could say. Neither could I. I barely had the strength left to contain him. You must leave this place, dear sweet little kid. My little girl. Enix still lacks the souls he needs to complete his resurrection, correct? I turned to see that he's been working on, I guess you'd call it, rewriting part of the magic circle. Thank you, Miguel. It seems I am indebted to you once more. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw him smile. Perhaps, but we'll meet again one day, many years from now if I'm lucky. You may pay me then. Now then, Serge. I've become to feel like something of a fifth wheel by this point. I jumped. See here, my knee. I'm going to force the whole soul hex into action. Force Linux's soul back into his body, as ill-prepared and decaying as it is. Serge, I need you to... Can't do this. If we go through this, Felicia's gonna... I'll need you to keep Kid away so that she doesn't interfere. What? I don't remember what happened next. There was a shrine. A shine of the magic sword's light. A swiftly swallowed scream from Linux. Miguel's firing frame. Making sigils in the air. Felicia's smile. And Kid's tears. When I came to, I was lying on the floor holding Kid. Her eyes were red from crying. Our clothes were torn in places. And we were both covered in cuts and scratches. Miguel was unconscious on the other side of the room. His energy completely spent. And on the floor, there was nothing. Not even a trace. Eventually, the moon rose again. And I stayed sitting on the floor, my mind blank until Miguel Kid finally returned to consciousness. I guess there was nothing else we could do in the end. I didn't say it to anyone in particular, and sure enough, neither of them replied. As we walked side by side through the forest, I turned back for one last look. This time, there was a general quiet surrounding the manor. Truce peace at last. Frozen flame, which Kid had held onto so tightly, vanished, leaving only an imprint in her hand. What? Well, that just... Oh. Yeah. And so ends another tale. So, in the end, remember, these endings are non-canon to the story. Because we actually know the true story about her past and such. Kinda. Or maybe this is the version. Maybe in this, because this is a different reality from the whatchamacallit, from Chrono Cross and Trigger. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that just, I don't know what to say about that ending. I mean, it was better than the other endings we've gotten so far. I mean, it wasn't just random, weird, nonsensical, like. I wouldn't even know how to explain it really. But you gotta keep in mind, this came out in '96, so stuff like that was just. The weird endings we got before this one was just the norm of things happening at that time. Joke endings were all the rage, very much in the '90s. Like, there's like that one serious ending that you can get, and then afterwards, it's like, let's just make fun of things and turn everything into a joke. But that means we only got 2 more endings. And then the music test track. Then the music test. And then apparently the super bonus secret that exists in this game. Which way we're gonna do this tutorial. Okay. But let me take a small break first and then do the next ending.